Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here Friday now, the 5th day of January 2024. On today's update, a couple of storms are going to begin to usher in some serious high-impact Arctic air, mainly in the west, but it is the beginning of what could be a substantial period of much below normal temperatures, high-impact storm events, the likes of which we have not seen in several years. Of course, in the Northeast, we're going to get some snow in areas that have not seen snow of any appreciable amount in almost 2 years. And then we're going to deal with another big storm after that into early next week to mid next week, the mid part of next week, that has the potential for some severe weather. So just a lot of stuff going on related to the winter. It's like 2023 ended very quiet, 24 with a bang to start things off. So let's get on with it. First, the National Weather Service homepage. I want to remind you this is a great guide for you to try to figure out what's going on in your area. You just click on the map if you know where you live, if you know your geography. If you don't and you know your zip code, you can put that up here and you can find out all kinds of relevant information. As an example, over here in the western part of Virginia, let's say you live in the Harrisonburg area, boom, you've got your point-and-click forecast information. And then the most important part, the forecast discussion. And this is written by real people that live and work at the local weather forecast office. So it is helpful. You can really dig into what to expect. This is valid for anywhere in the country. Alaska, Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands included. All right? So the rest of this, another part of my point of all this, look at all the stuff that's starting to fill in now. The last few updates, we haven't had a lot out there. This is getting ready to fill in, and wait till you see what happens as we get into next week. It is going to be something else. A lot of impacts upcoming. If you are traveling, air travel is going to become increasingly difficult throughout the country because of the impacts where the storms are happening, but then the ripple effect, one hub gets upset, things go crazy, whatever, storminess, flights get canceled, that starts to ripple around the country, delaying things. So if you're traveling this weekend through next week, especially out west, in between whatever, pretty much the whole lower 48, FlightAware, all the other sites that you might use for that. And Fox Weather does a great job of keeping up with flight information as well, I might add. And I'm just telling you, man, the flights are going to be a real pain in the butt here. Not for everybody, but a big increase in flight problems coming up. Elsewhere, of course, travel, winter weather travel, I think is the most dangerous because you lose the traction and people think, hey, I've got a big truck, it's got four-wheel drive. You know what? You're never going to beat the laws of physics. It's just not going to happen, all right? You have to be careful out there. So I'm just warning you, the travel period coming up here, by rail, by car, by air, whatever, planes, trains, automobiles, to use that expression, it's going to be rough. So this map is going to get a lot more patchworky and very much filled in over the coming days. So the satellite imagery this morning, the storm, the first one, that's finally going to bring some snow and other inclement weather to the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, it is currently sitting over parts of the southern plains, some snow and rain over Kansas. And I'm going to tell you, the more precip we start getting out here, the more that's going to start to seed the upcoming severe weather season. More on that later, but I wanted to plant that seed, literally, in your mind that when we get a lot of precip out here, that helps the severe weather season along. We'll be talking about that later. So the first storm, look at that comma shape, classic look to it. This is going to move east. We're going to get that Miller A type storm. Kind of a Miller A, Miller B hybrid, but that's just technical terms. They're going to come up the coast here, and where it actually sets up will determine who gets the most snow in New England. But you know what? Snow totals, I know they're interesting, and people want to know how much. It's going to snow in some areas that haven't seen it in a while, and the plows are going to be doing their thing. The snow removal company is going to be able to get active again. And then you're going to have the severe weather threat, which is already not too much severe weather, but some thunderstorms and convection in the northwest Gulf. So this is storm number one. And then the next piece of energy is going to be coming in, and that will be providing the fuel for storm number two. And that one's going to be gargantuan. I am telling you, it is something else. So looking over here on the Twitter, Dr. Ryan Maui, yes, the Euro, the GFS, all the models agreeing that we're going to have some cold, deep Arctic air spilling into the lower 48. Look at some of these graphics here. 1050 millibar high, way up over the Northwest Territories. And the thing about air is its density. And cold air gets to be very dense, and it spills. Like I said, a good way to visualize it is very thick molasses. You put a big glob of it on the table, and it gradually oozes out. That's what this Arctic air will do. The jet stream's going to buckle. We're going to get the Arctic air coming into the lower 48, and some much below normal temperatures coming up. And these different maps indicate that. The blues, people call this Barney for obvious reasons. So anomalously cold temperatures out west, with a big trough out there, and then in a corresponding ridge, the equal and opposite reaction. In the east, we should have a warm-up. Now, while that sounds good to some people who don't like winter weather, that warm-up is going to come at a cost in the way of very heavy rain, snow melt, and I'm going to see a lot of flooding potential coming up. That's definitely in the cards for parts of the east. So there's a lot to address here as we go forward. And you can just see here the overall temperature pattern very much going to change from what we have seen in really the last couple of years. Not since 2021 when we had that terrible cold outbreak deep into Texas have we seen something to this magnitude. I mean, it might, tiny chance, snow in Phoenix, Arizona. Not just the mountains. I know Flagstaff gets snow. They had snow recently. But I'm talking all the way down to the valley floors there. That's a possibility. This is just nuts. It really is. So the first storm, infographics are helpful, and you just need to understand the general swath of the impacts. And just like in hurricane season, we get these key messages. This, of course, comes from the Weather Prediction Center, the WPC, part of NOAA. They're based up there in College Park, Maryland. I'll just point that out for you. So in the Appalachians here, we've got the problems of ice accretion. That's no good, so you need to be ready for that. In parts of the Piedmont, just east of the mountains there in North Carolina through Virginia, and the impact, the threat here, the probability, it's getting on up there, especially up in New England with heavy snow, 6 to 12 inches plus, depending on where these bands set up. All right, so the infographics are helpful. You can find the WPC at these web addresses. They are also pretty easy to find on social media. All right, so check that out if you get a chance. So here's what it looks like on the GFS from the 6Z run, just kind of going through everything here. This is the first storm system, obviously. Cold, high pressure sitting over the east. It was about 28, 29 here in Wilmington. Colder than that up in the northeast. We call that the antecedent air mass that's sitting out there before everything. But it is not a very deep air mass. The cold air is not stacked. It's going to be easy to scour it out as this storm system comes up. Look at what's going on. These winds here coming off the Atlantic, which is warm relative to the air and warmer than average by most accounts, right, in most areas. So the snow is not going to be that dry, fluffy snow. It is going to be the wet snow. And so it's going to be easy to compact itself. You make a good snowball with it, but if you squeeze it, you can probably squeeze out some moisture, some water. You do that sometimes at the beach with sand. You compact the sand together, and you get the water that drips out of it. That's what's going to happen with the snow in parts of the Northeast. So it's going to be heavy, and if you are out of shape, you hadn't done any shoveling in a while, seriously, big-time memo to you. Look, I try to keep you safe during hurricane season, talking about waves and rip currents and things like that. These secondary hazards, the hazard up here with this very heavy snow, heart attacks, right? Cardiovascular problems. So be careful, be mindful of that. If you know somebody up there, man, they hadn't had to deal with it in a while, maybe they have dealt with some kind of respiratory illness recently. Look, we got to think about these things, the broad impacts beyond how much snow are we going to get. Different models saying this, different meteorologists fighting about it on social media. That's all well and good, but when it comes down to it, as I say, you need to ask yourself, the weather is where you can be selfish. How will this impact me? And if you're thinking, yeah, it has been a couple of years since I've shoveled any snow, This snow is going to be heavier because there's going to be a higher moisture content. So your 10-to-1 ratios, 10 inches of snow for every 1 inch of rain, that's not going to work this time around universally. So just please keep that in mind. We don't need people out there shoveling, pay somebody $50, $100, whatever it is, I have no idea, to do it for you, or to use a plow, one of those gas-powered deals, right? Got to keep you safe. Got to keep you safe. And of course, if you're traveling, good luck with that. Airline problems, interstate problems, you name it. Not a huge storm, but impactful enough. Obviously, it will bring some snow to parts of the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, etc. There will be a severe weather component to it as well. We'll address that in just a few minutes. Then we start watching the next piece of energy that'll be coming in out here that could spark ground blizzard conditions, or just regular old blizzard conditions for parts of the southern plains. That starts to happen Sunday into Monday, moving out of the Four Corners region into Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas Panhandle, and then a serious rain, severe weather threat, the whole 9 yards, maybe some ice with cold air that's left over at the surface. This second storm will be one that people will remember for a long time. I am confident of that. The wind, the rain, the flooding, the coastal issues that are going to happen. This is one of these ones where I wish there was 3 of me so that I could be all over the place at once, but I can't. And as I'll talk about at the end, I am going to cover this, and it's going to be in the southern plains. I've not ever done that, and I want to do that. I was up in the high plains for a blizzard last December of 22, but this is different. We'll get to that in a minute. But this storm comes through, and boy, oh boy, just look at that. The rain rates, all those packed isobars in there. That tells you wind. And look at this along the coast here, the East Coast, the entirety of the East Coast. We've got a new moon coming up. Coastal flooding is going to be a problem for some of these areas. You need to use that weather.gov I was telling you about, this site right here. You go up and you click along the Mid-Atlantic, you can start reading about that in the coming days. Beach erosion, big waves, coastal flooding, that is going to be a problem. The deep Arctic air, not in the east just yet. It is going to be out west. Therefore, you do get all these greens in here. It's still kind of a mildish pattern relative to what's happening out west. So no, this is not going to be a huge winter storm in terms of snow, but a big extratropical storm, or whatever you call it, mid-latitude storm during the winter that is going to pack a serious punch. Then the next hammer drops out west, and we get some major Arctic air digging in, and possibly a little bit more than a week out, another blizzard setting up potentially for parts of the plains. So yes, a very active pattern, including severe weather. Now check this out. This is day 1 today. A little bit of thunderstorm activity along the Pacific Northwest immediate coast. Also some general thunderstorm activity with a marginal environment for severe down along the Gulf Coast. Then, as we move through time, we start to shift things. The Carolinas, Florida, this is tomorrow. Sunday, instability, enough of it. You could get some thunderstorms, yes, in the winter. Look at that. Really? Convective activity possible? I'm telling you what, this shows you the dynamics of this next storm that's going to be coming through. Finally, as we get out to day 4, this is very problematic. The possibility of some strong tornadoes, especially on day 5. You folks down here along the Gulf Coast, the southeast, you need to pay attention to this very closely. Follow your local weather, whoever it is, your weather person of your choice down in your neck of the woods. You got that person that you trust. You need to be following them. Make sure you're up to what's going on. You're up to date, because the severe potential, I've read the discussion, they mentioned the possibility of strong tornadoes. This is something that could be very serious. You need to be paying attention to it. I know we got a lot of other things going on in the world. It's always that way, right? Don't let this sneak up on you. I'll be on top of it too. We'll be talking about it on social media and elsewhere. Okay, our Discord for our patrons on Patreon. And remember, you can join our Patreon for free and at least get posts from there, because I'm going to be posting a lot on our Patreon as well. But the severe threat is substantial, yes, even in January. So pay attention. Then the other part of this, the rain. The overall rain, the quantitative precipitation forecast is incredible. All of these reds that you see through here, let me get black here to kind of highlight it for you. That is a lot of rainfall, more than 2.5 inches over a huge area, and this is over the next 5 days. But remember, I talked about the plains. It looks like the QPF is pretty good out there. The overall precipitation starting to dent that drought that they've been enduring. And if this pattern loads up a few more storms, again, just a little teaser here, that could help to influence the upcoming severe weather season. But the flood threat through here, the mid-Atlantic up into the northeast, southeast, this is real, and people need to be ready for it. And that reminds me to remind you of our partner, Quick Dams. Look at all the different things you can get in the outdoor realm to help you prepare for flooding from fresh water. Sandbags, come on, that's so long ago. Use water-activated, reusable, non-toxic. It's great. Again, we are partnering with Quick Dam. Full disclosure, as they say, some great stuff for outdoor and indoor, because you got water problems inside as well. So they have it all for you, and you can see where you can buy it pretty much everywhere. The big box stores, it's fantastic. They're growing. I'm so proud to be associated with them. And they are overseas in the UK as well, just in case you were wondering, well, what about Europe? Yep. If Europe has problems, well, at least the UK, it is available, the Quick Dam products in the United Kingdom. But seriously, when you see this, you should start thinking, uh-oh, I need to get some Quick Dam stuff to make sure I mitigate flood problems. Now, what am I going to be doing? As I said, I wish I could be everywhere at once, but I can't. So my plan, I'm going to be leaving today, flying over to Dallas. Why so early, and why Dallas, you might be asking? Well, you got to take the weather into consideration. I can't fly out tomorrow because the storm's going to be coming in, and it's just going to be mayhem. So today's my window. I'm going to get out there and get set up, meet some colleagues. I got people helping me out. And then the plan is probably somewhere in this area is where I think the greatest potential exists for blizzard conditions, and I'm going to cover that. It is going to be remarkable reading some of the discussions, 50, 60, maybe 70 mile an hour winds just above the surface. Easy to get that to come down to the surface with a jet streak coming through, all that energy out there. And it's the plains that's very flat, and that wind energy translates across the ground very efficiently. You get ground blizzard conditions, and if you've never seen anything like it, I did last year in South Dakota, well, 2022, that last year, the other last year. It's remarkable, and it can be frightening at times because it can disorient you. I want to cover that out there, and then hopefully travel with the storm system, perhaps into the Missouri area. We'll see. Got to take safety into consideration, but that is what I'm going to do. And then I might, and my family's going to love this, be out there for an extended period, because it's not that far to drive to Phoenix from wherever I am out here. A couple of days at best, or at worst. If it's going to snow in Phoenix, I want to be there for that. Gotta see it, all right? Small chance, more of a chance of another blizzard potentially setting up, as I showed you later on. So Mark might be out there living out of his suitcase for a while. But this is high-impact stuff. It matters. This is going to affect people. It's a news story. I'll be working with Fox Weather, of course. I'll be on our YouTube streaming live, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, our Patreon is open to sign up for free. And if you want to become an investor and support in what we're doing and become a partner that way, you can whenever you feel like it. And then you can just drop off if you need to, whatever your financial situation allows. And I think that works really, really well at helping to move the project forward. So as this big series of storms ushers in that Arctic air, I tell you what, I think people are going to be a little bit surprised, because it has been a while. I mean, seriously, parts of California are going to be very, very cold, and they're not used to that out there. It was wet and wintry, lots of snow last year, but it wasn't bitter cold. This time it's going to be much colder and a lot of storminess to go along with it. All right? As I said, I'll update you along the way. Twitter, that's where I post the most. YouTube, when we're live, will be there, so be sure to subscribe, hit the notification button so that you get push notified when we are live, because starting Monday, I'll be live for at least a couple of days, me and a colleague of mine. I'll introduce you to him when we're out there, all right? Other than that, I wish you guys a great weekend ahead. Stay on top of the weather, watch your sports and all that good stuff too, but be in tune with the weather, because if you're not, it can bite you. You got to be careful. All right, thanks for tuning in. From all of us at Hurricane Track, I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again from somewhere out in the Southern Plains on Monday.